Douglas. Welcome to the podcast. This is a special edition episode where I invited trombonist, composer, and bandleader Ryan Keberle to introduce his own new album, The Hope I Hold, a June 2019 Greenleaf music release. Ryan's band with Camila Meza, Scott Robinson, Jorge Roeder, and Eric Dube is one of the strongest working bands out there, and I think you'll like this new music. And if you do, please come check it out at Greenleaf Music, or as always, pick up the entire catalog by becoming a subscriber at greenleafmusic.com. I hope you will. Lots of special material over there, including exclusive extras from this show, a series about music and musicians. So enjoy the music. Thanks for listening. Here's Ryan.
Hello, Noise from a Deep podcast listeners. This is Ryan Keberle speaking to you from Brooklyn, New York on a beautiful spring afternoon. And I'm here today to take this opportunity and tell you about our upcoming album, The Hope I Hold, which is due out on June 28th on Greenleaf Music, of course. And while this album is our fourth for Greenleaf Music and fifth with Catharsis, in many ways it marks a turning point for the band, and it represents a first on a few different levels, beginning with the inclusion of Scott Robinson as a full-blown regular member of the band. Scott, for those of you keeping track at home, has appeared on many of our past Catharsis albums, but in a special guest role. And about 2 years ago, Scott joined the band as a regular member and has since then done extensive touring with us around the world over those 2 years. And it's been a true honor and pleasure for all of us in the band to get to work with such a master musician, a master improviser, and someone who brings such a rich language that represents truly the full spectrum of jazz history, beginning from the earliest stages in New Orleans to the most modern avant-garde stages of our present day. I tell people that Scott Robinson is one of my all-time favorite improvisers, which I don't say lightly. He and I have worked together for over 10 years now with the great Maria Schneider Orchestra, and just about every solo he's taken over those years leaves me with my jaw on the floor. His ability to convey emotion through his music, and most importantly, to tell a story through his improvisations is something that I strive for, and I hold Scott in the highest of regards. So I'd like to now play a clip from our album, The Hope I Hold, that features just a little bit of what Scott has brought to the band in terms of his saxophone playing and his ability to take the music and elevate it to that next level. This is a clip from the opening track of the record, a piece I composed with lyrics by Langston Hughes, I'll talk more about that later, called Tangled in That Ancient Endless Chain.
Tangled in that ancient endless chain, endless chain, endless chain.
let the track continue running there, because what you're about to hear right after Scott's solo is an improvised solo on guitar from Keberle Meza. And that brings us to the next first of this record, and that is the inclusion of Keberle on guitar in a more soloistic format. Again, for those of you who have been listening to the band over the last 5 years, you'll remember that when we first enlisted Keberle, she joined us strictly as a vocalist, and looking back on that decision, I'm wondering now why I didn't just have her play guitar from the beginning, because she is unbelievable. Truly just an exceptional guitar player in every way. And so as we've been touring quite extensively these last couple of years, it was just inevitable, kind of a natural progression of things for Keberle to start playing more and more guitar. And this album will showcase her on a number of tracks in both a soloist role and as an accompanist on the guitar. So I want to take a moment now and just return to the track Tangled in That Ancient Endless Chain and give you a taste of Keberle Meza's exceptional guitar abilities. I think the reason I love Keberle Meza's guitar playing so much is that in many ways it's a direct reflection of the music she makes when she's singing. And when you look back on jazz history, really the first great improviser in jazz history, Louis Armstrong, was a singer and an instrumentalist. And regardless of his chosen medium, he created honest music that represented who he was and that more or less utilized the same musical language, whether it was sung or played on the trumpet. And I think Keberle does that in very similar ways as a vocalist and guitarist. And it's also something that I've always strived to do. Not many people are aware that in a previous life, I was the music director at a Catholic church here in New York City. It's how I paid the bills for the first 6 or 7 years that I lived in New York. And at the church, I played piano and I sang. There was no trombone involved. No one needed a trombonist. And just recently, again, very much inspired by Keberle, I've begun singing more and more in catharsis as well. And you heard a little bit of that on our last record. I sang some background vocals with Keberle on our track Become the Water. But on this new album, I'm stepping out front, and again, this is the next first that this album represents. I sing the lead vocals for a piece I wrote called Campinas, which is the town that many of my close Brazilian musician friends live in, just outside of Sao Paulo. So that is a good segue. This last year, I was on sabbatical from my teaching position at Hunter College, and I spent the greater part of a month off and on in Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, and getting to know the local musicians, getting to know, of course, the local music, and it really was a life-changing experience for me. And one of the things that I really fell in love with was this songwriting tradition from the late 1960s and early 1970s, led by the likes of Milton Nascimento, Toninho Horta, Edu Lobo, the Caymmi family. And one of the traditions that many of these songwriters use in their music is singing with wordless vocals. And of course, using wordless vocals is something that we also do a great deal of in Catharsis, and it is the way in which I've decided to make my debut as a vocalist, again using wordless vocals. So we'll listen to just a bit of that from the track Campinas. Another first that this record represents is the inclusion of a brand new instrument. It's basically a glorified toy, but it's something that I've spent a great deal of time with over the last couple of years, and that is a synthesizer called the Korg Minilog. And I got the Korg Minilog originally in order to have a keyboard that I could travel with. It's quite small. I can fit it into my suitcase when we're on the road, and it allowed us to play songs like Become the Water and our arrangement of Dylan's Times They Are A-Changin', tunes that were fairly keyboard centric. After that, though, I began experimenting with the full parameter control that the keyboard allows, starting to build my own sounds, messing around with some of the other effects it offers. And it actually led to the start of a new project of mine, a solo trombone, keyboard, and laptop project that I've been working with alongside a visual artist performing in art galleries and museums here in New York City. And what we've been listening to in the background at the moment are a few excerpts that I created and recorded as part of that solo project. Just a few things that I love about the Korg Minilog include the fact that it's a 4-voice polyphonic keyboard, so that really limits you to the kind of chords and voicings you can play. Again, you can only play 4 notes at a time, and I love the way in which that aligns itself with the original concept of Catharsis, which was a 3-voice band, trumpet, trombone, bass. And originally, that's how I wrote our music, in a more contrapuntal way, thinking always about the most efficient way to create harmony with only 3 voices. I also love the fact that it's an analog synthesizer, So the sounds that it produces have a warmth and a resonance that still very much blends with the analog instruments of trombone and saxophone and bass, drums, etc. So now I'll talk about the last first that this record, The Hope I Hold, represents, and that is the debut recording of the Catharsis Trio. 4 tracks on the album feature Catharsis in a pared-down trio format with myself on trombone, mini log, and voice, Camila on voice and guitar, and Jorge on voice and bass. We were given the opportunity to tour in Japan about a year and a half ago, and it was on that tour that we discovered our love for working in a trio format. I have to admit we were all a bit apprehensive about performing without a drummer, especially playing music that we had played for years with a drummer. But it turns out you don't really need a drummer. They're overrated. And it was really just an incredible tour for us. And we got back to New York and immediately went into the studio to document what we had developed while on the road for almost 2 weeks. So those 4 tracks feature a new rendition of my song Become the Water. It features a composition of Camila Mesa's called Para Volar. It features an arrangement we did of a wonderful Argentinian folk song called Samba de Lozano. And perhaps most excitingly, it features the very first composition recorded by Jorge Roeder called Peering. So I want to play just a couple of clips drawn from that material now. I'll start with our arrangement of Camila Mesa's Para Volar, which she recorded a few years back on her album Traces. I love the way that this song introduces each of the characters in the group, the sonic characters of the group: voice, trombone, guitar, and bass. And I think it's a great example of just how well those sonic characters seamlessly blend together in this new pared-down version of the band. Again, the Catharsis Trio.
Vine a dibujarte flores en tu piel y vi cómo nace el río. Me dejaste abrazar tus alas sin miedo y me fui volando contigo. Un nudo se deshace cada vez que vuelvo a imaginar ese instante. Tu sombra se hace pequeña, a contraluz tu vuelo renace. Deja que te lleve el viento, vuela libre hasta encontrar verdades sin temor ni tiempo, en su esencia libertad. Deja que te lleve el viento, vuela y vuelve a soñar.
One of the other exciting features of this band is the fact that all 3 of us love to sing, and I'd like to think are pretty good at it. And so we began singing in duo settings and even in trio settings, 3-part harmony at times in Catharsis Trio. So I want to play just a snippet of an arrangement that Jorge did of an Argentinian folk song written by a wonderful composer named Cuchi Leguizamon. The song is called Samba de Lozano.
Jugenita, ¿quién te vio? En la puna triste te vuelvo a querer. Mi pena se va al aire y en el aire llora su padecer. Mi pena se va al aire y en el aire llora su padecer. Me voy yendo, volveré. Los dólares solos se han vuelto a quedar. Se quemarán tus ojos, samba enamorada del carnaval. Se quemarán tus ojos, samba enamorada del carnaval.
So I'd like to now talk about a few other, what I think might be interesting pieces of information behind the making of The Hope I Hold. Our last record, Find the Calm and Shine a Light, was tracked exclusively at a studio in Dumbo, Brooklyn that is co-owned and operated by our drummer, Eric Dube. And while this new album was not tracked exclusively there, we did spend some time working in Eric's studio on 2 of the tracks, Campinas, which we've already listened to a bit of, and our track America Will Be. And I mention this because typically the way jazz recordings work in New York City, given the prohibitive costs associated with studio time, is you'll rehearse, you'll perform, you'll try to get the music together, and then you'll go into the studio for 1 or perhaps 2 days if you're lucky to record all the music. But because of Eric's involvement with Catharsis and his involvement with the studio, he was generous enough to offer us a great deal of time, basically as much time as I wanted, to overdub, to compose in the studio, and to essentially explore the creative process that having a studio at your disposal introduces. And so both of these songs, Campinas and America Will Be, were essentially crafted and composed in the studio, meaning we would lay down one layer, perhaps some keyboards, some Fender Rhodes or Korg Mini-Log, then we would lay down bass. I'd have Jorge come in sometime later on and lay down some bass, then Eric would lay down the drum tracks, percussion tracks. I'd come back, I'd lay down some vocal tracks and trombone tracks, etc., etc. And I think this might be the wave of the future for Catharsis, because for me as a composer, it is really just a completely different mindset, being able to essentially compose and create in real time, but to have the luxury to do so in this track-by-track process. And also because of the way it allows each of the band members to bring their own ideas and their own perspective to the music, which just, it's harder to do when you're performing as a full band in a live setting. In that setting, everyone is very much reliant on the sheet music. So me as the composer and arranger has to have everything in place before we begin. So it's just a very different process, not better or worse, but something that I'm excited to explore more of down the road. So I thought it might be fun to listen to just a clip of America Will Be that demonstrates the layers of sound that we were able to produce in Eric Dube's recording studio. As I wrap up this podcast, I want to talk a bit about what is perhaps the most important feature of this album, and that is the fact that we are still very much intent on using our music and our platform as artists to bring about positive social change in our country. As we tour the country, oftentimes performing in rural university towns, we time and time again come across people who are like us, not necessarily sharing the same political views, but like us, interested in creating a more civil dialogue between people with obviously extremely different backgrounds. It's such a huge country with so many different types of people. And I firmly believe in the power of music to inspire others to become more engaged in the political process and to do their own part in making our country a better place. And so to that end, the words that the feature suite of this album, the Hope I Hold Suite, which was commissioned by a wonderful grant called the Chamber Music America New Jazz Works grant a few years back, draws words from the great Langston Hughes poem, Let America Be America Again, written almost 90 years ago. And this poem, when I first read it, struck me in very deep and meaningful ways. I immediately knew I wanted to work with it in some regard. And the poem is long, so it was kind of a daunting task at first. And what I wound up eventually doing was cutting the poem down into bits and pieces and using the words in some cases like tangled in that ancient endless chain as lyrics, traditional lyrics, and in other cases, like you'll hear at the end of America Will Be, in a kind of improvised recitative by Camila Meza. So all of that to say, I hope that you find the time to purchase and or download this album. It is something we're all very, very proud of, and we're even more excited to start to tour with. We'll be performing this summer in the Midwest, in towns like Iowa City, Kansas City, Chicago. We'll be in New York on July 17th at the Jazz Standard, with many more dates to come, including dates on the West Coast in Europe this fall and winter. So I hope to see perhaps one of you at an upcoming show, and wish you a very happy summer.